Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be doing my Superman versus all of fiction. Of course, not every fictional character, but I picked out a lot of the more, I guess, commonly scaled characters. I've done this before with Wally West Flash. That video did pretty well, so I thought I would do it again with Superman, who is arguably like maybe one of the top like five most commonly mentioned characters when it comes to hypothetical battles, at least in online communities. I would put it like Superman, Goku. What are some other ones that are probably maybe Kratos? Wukong's been making the rounds recently. So yeah, let's get started right away because we got quite a list with Adam Warlock. And just to clarify, if I put a character up here, that means they're beating Superman low diff, and if I put them down here, they're losing against Superman, and Superman's no diffing them. Okay. That being said, Adam Warlock is pretty confidently going to be beating Superman. He just scales high. He scales almost like the Infinity Gauntlet in some respects, which can be a bit like of a variable feat. But like you see him interacting with characters like the Living Tribunal and such pretty regularly. So I'd say mid diff is probably fair. Aizen. Now this is an interesting matchup. So Aizen's Kyoka Soigetsu after he fuses with the Hyogaku is pretty much instantaneous in activation. So anybody who looks at him is automatically under his control. And now Superman does have some resistance to mental manipulation from characters like Psycho Pirate, but it's not like fair or easy for us to say that Aizen's like resistance should be either better or worse than Psycho Pirates. There's really no reason or no way we would know because nobody's really able to resist Aizen's mental manipulation from what we've seen. So I would say that we should probably, and of course this is all assuming that Superman can see Aizen, right? Because I think the fight's pretty much unfair if you don't assume he can. And to be fair, Superman does have like 50 billion different types of vision, so one of them probably would be able to pick up Aizen. That being said, in terms of AP, Aizen doesn't scale high enough for me to say that he should be able to confidently hurt Superman. But at the same time, Superman shouldn't really, if Aizen is playing it properly, Superman shouldn't really be able to do anything to him because he just won't be able to sense where he is. So one thing I think might be reasonable to say is that, we can make an argument that, if Superman really wanted to, I guess he could like punch the earth to destroy it and then Aizen wouldn't be able to breathe. But, like, I think that to do that, we would require like a very specific situation. I think for these fights, we should mostly assume that, like, let's say character B is attacking Metropolis and Superman's trying to defend against them. And, in a situation like that, he's not punching out the earth to beat Aizen. That's just silly. So I guess this one might just be a tie, except it's hard to say, Kyoka Suigetsu is like an ability and but Aizen has seemingly been able to like perpetually use it without draining his stamina at all. And the Hyogaku does allow him to evolve. So if we're, I guess, assuming that he can like evolve theoretically like infinitely against Superman, then eventually he should be able to outpower Superman. And this is all assuming that Superman he can't already harm Superman with his sword or one of his Keto techniques. So maybe I do give it to Aizen high diff, but that is if he plays it perfectly and doesn't make any mistakes in terms of like using his Kyoka so he gets ability. Which, yeah. So now we have Akuma. Akuma gets a no diff. He just doesn't have the feats to get up there. He's like island level at best, and his speed is, in comparison to Superman, like pretty atrocious. Excuse me. Alien X, and when people scale Alien X, I think the general assumption is that he should be able to like use his powers perfectly, and he's able to convince like those two disagreeing like embodiments of the universe. So in that case, he wins like pretty mid diff to Superman, maybe even low diff. But I'm thinking mid diff is probably fair. Like low diff is going to be for like the characters that scale like even above characters like Adam Warlock and Alien X. Superman has shown to be able to like resist like straight up erasure before, but I still don't think he's like hurting Alien X. So that's why I would put mid diff. Amazo. This is the Amazo from the animated series. And in terms of feats, we just don't have enough to get him quite there. But at the same time, as soon as he sees Superman, he can copy his abilities. And then there's not really much Superman is going to be able to do to stop him. So maybe we put that at high. Maybe even when it's high diff. In terms of like, actual feats, we haven't seen Amazo go to like the levels he would need, but by how Amazo works, I would just assume he'd be able to copy this Superman's physiology as soon as the fight starts, and the Superman just shouldn't really be able to do anything to him after that. So maybe that's not even a high diff. I guess they're like roughly equal stats, so maybe high diff is fair. The difference would be infinite stamina versus finite stamina. Anos Voldigode, I kind of regret putting him in the tier list. I don't actually really know exactly where he scales. I think it's like around. He probably is like to some extent some sort of like outer versal and even like boundless in terms of like his own universe's lore. Hard to scale him in terms of like multiverse, especially because like his universe isn't as fleshed out as like Marvel. So or sorry, DC I should say. So it's not really fair to say his like cosmology should surpass Superman. Like obviously it wouldn't in terms of straight scaling, but at the same time, like narratively, it seems that his like strength isn't just like capping out at his like universe level. It does seem like he has like some creation level like ability, at least from what I understand. I need to familiarize myself a little more with this character, so I guess take that with a grain of salt. Anti-Monitor should win pretty confidently. Maybe we'll put him like high mid diff. Like Crisis on Infinite Earths, he was like a huge threat. None of the characters were really able to like fight against them one-on-one. Flash was able to get in some licks. Superman, of course, but like Superman is realistically losing the fight against like a fully realized Anti-Monitor. Of course, we have weakened versions of Anti-Monitor that don't scale as high, but we don't really count those. Anti-Spiral should also no diff. Scales like those high diff. For the most part, in terms of like the scaling, I don't really exactly know how you can get the cosmology of Gurren Lagann to get anywhere higher than multiversal, but they were throwing around galaxies, and that was pretty impressive. So, like narratively, I think we can probably put him above Superman. Apocalypse, I think it would be a tough fight, but I think Superman could come out on top. Apocalypse does have a lot of versatility and a lot of strength, but I think Superman just has the better showings. Aquaman, probably mid diff. He does have the durability to take some attacks from Superman, I think, but for the most part, he's not touching Superman. RCS, I think, can go around high diff as well. Maybe mid diff for narrative, like creation reasons. Azathoth should be a low diff. Hellbat, Batu, Batman doesn't have the stamina. I think Superman just outlasts him. Beerus should get clapped pretty confidently. Probably scales below Apocalypse, so I'll put him down here. Beyonder, whether it's pre-retcon or post-retcon, is going to be destroying Superman, I believe. Definitely pre-retcon, of course, but post-retcon, I think maybe you drop him down one, but we'll put him up there. Black Adam, we've seen this fight plenty of times. His magic gives him an edge, but Superman always comes out on top. Black Bolt gets speed blitzed. Captain America no diffed. Captain Atom just gets punched in and then explodes for like the 15th time. Put him. He does control radiation, which makes him a pretty good matchup against Superman. And even in universe, like he would have knowledge of how Superman's powers work, and would be able to like produce red sun radiation to try to counter Superman's abilities. Hasn't gone too well for him in the past, but he definitely gives Superman a run for his money. Captain Marvel also controls radiation, but without the knowledge to utilize it, I don't know how it would work. Although I think she can also see radiation, which means she might be able to see that Superman is powering on like solar radiation, just might be able to steal it, which I think actually gives her like a very confident like win condition. So even though she's not as strong as these other characters in the mid diff tier, I think that she has like a very realistic scenario and like line of reasoning why she should just destroy Superman in a fight. At least like in an in-character fight. I guess if Superman knows that he's fighting against somebody, he needs to take it as seriously as possible for the minute the fight starts, then he speed blitz Captain Marvel. But otherwise, I think Captain Marvel can pull out a win through the like radiation hacks. And I think that's going to be a pretty unpopular opinion, but I call it as I see it. Cell would be like around like probably lower than this. I know Cell definitely scales way below Beerus, but on like the grand scale of things, we're going to put them next to each other. Let's see. No, Solar System is way too small. But it feels weird putting him in the same tier as Captain America. Chad gets Chad more like bad, I guess. Cyborg Superman, we've seen this fight. He does lose high diff. Daredevil gets no diff. Phoenix Force no diffs. Batman Who Laughs no diffs. Darkseid, depends on if we're talking like an avatar form or Darkseid. Generally, he should be winning high mid diff, but if it's like, true form Darkseid, like low to mid diff, I'll put him here to average it out. I think he's like probably around anti-monitor level. Darth Sidious, doesn't really matter which version. I mean, the version matters as far as no diff versus mid diff, but if we're going with Legends, we'll call it mid diff. Otherwise, it's no diff. We'll leave him up here. Darth Vader is very similar. Deku has a lot of abilities, but nothing that can really touch Superman. I think, unfortunately, you have to put him no diff. Doomsday loses more times than he wins, but, definitely gives Superman a huge run for his money. Dormammu wins pretty confidently. Having his power being magic-based is just overkill. Doctor Doom, I think you can make a good case that Doctor Doom should be able to win. Has feats that put him around Superman's level. Again, gets outdone in terms of speed, which might be a bit of a hindrance for him, but in terms of his actual attacks, he is more capable of fighting Superman, and he also does deal with characters who are like conventionally faster than him on the regular. So assuming Superman doesn't immediately one tap him, and I think Doctor Doom has like the durability. We've seen him like deflect attacks from Celestials before, so I'd say he probably wins, and mostly because of his control of magic. Otherwise, he shouldn't really scale quite to Superman's level. Dr. Fate, this one's really hard, I think, because I feel like Dr. Fate's never like actually beaten Superman. How much do they actually fight though? Like Superman might be conventionally stronger, but Dr. Fate, especially Dr. Fate when he's like a god of order or whatever they're called, Lord of Order, should be winning. I'd say I put him around Dr. Doom's level and keep like a similar level of reasoning. Dr. Manhattan should no diff. Doctor Strange, probably around Dr. Fate's level as well. So Drax would be a no diff. Escanor, I'd probably say no diff. Totally a no diff because his sun power is just going to make Superman stronger and not even injure him. So that's just like Captain Marvel is like the best match or the worst matchup for Superman. I think Escanor is the best matchup for him. So Firestorm can also control things on a molecular level. And like if we're using like in character knows Superman well enough, he can manipulate it to make kryptonite. And that is despite how I think it's sometimes treated. Kryptonite is usually like a pretty crippling weakness for Superman, like to the point that if he's exposed to it, even like a normal person can throw hands with him. So I think we could probably put Firestorm as a character up here as well. Flash should lose pretty confidently. Doesn't really have the AP. I think that this is one to talk about a lot, especially like Wally West Flash. But I would give it to Superman. Franklin Richards should win pretty confidently. Frieza will put around the other DBZ characters a little higher. Galactus will put around Franklin Richards. Gambit can't do anything to him. Monster Garo gives him, I guess, like a run for his money, but doesn't adapt fast enough or like grow fast enough to really make a difference. God Emperor Doom should stomp, I think. Ghost Rider shouldn't really be able to do anything. I don't think the penance stare is hurting somebody like Superman. Superman's actually just like a great dude. I just can't imagine that the penance stare does anything to him. Gilgamesh should be a no diff. Godzilla, I think they've fought before. I think normally Godzilla does win. Especially like narratively, if we're saying like, he's attacking Metropolis and Superman needs to stop him. He's just stronger. Especially like comic book Godzilla has crazy feats. Spawn level stuff where he's like destroying all of hell, etc. You know how it is. Gojo. So it really depends on how you want to interpret Infinity. If Superman is able to move faster than light and at like immeasurable speeds, can he blitz Infinity? I really don't know. It really is up to how you interpret it. Gojo's domain expansion should theoretically be able to fry Superman's brain. It is just infinite information that Superman shouldn't be able to process. So I think it comes down to how you want to view Infinity. So I'll put him in the tie, put him wherever you'd like. Goku. Now, a lot of these matchups are going to be ones where, people can talk about it for like actually hours and like not come to a conclusion. But, because of the format of this video, I'm not going to go over every specific matchup in like great detail. But I guess if there are any matchups that people are interested in, like, let me know your thoughts. We can talk about it in the comments, or maybe even I can make a video if there's any that are particularly interesting to people. Golden Experience Requiem, just, you can't really beat GER unless you have some sort of like concept manipulation abilities. He can just reduce Superman to 0, and there's nothing Superman can really do about it. What is this? Parallax Green Lantern, yes. Should confidently stomp Superman, just has much higher scaling. Parallax is, a pretty strong entity. Hal Jordan by himself is already giving Superman a pretty good run for his money. Again, like scaling, I don't think his AP gets quite high enough, but, pretty impressive. Homelander is a no diff. Hulk. Now, Hulk, a while ago, I would have said is probably losing in a high diff fight. But I think recently with like, Immortal Hulk and some of the like feats that we've been getting from him recently, we probably have him winning more times than he loses, especially because I think a fight between him and Superman seems like one where it would be really long and drawn out. And in that regard, Hulk does have the advantage because the longer a fight goes, the angrier he gets, and then the stronger he gets. Ichigo, even though Aizen is up here, doesn't quite get up there because he doesn't have the same levels of hacks. Iron Man, I guess he can like fight against Thor, but that's it. And without prep time, he's not close. Jiren around these guys. Juggernaut is an interesting matchup where Superman can't really hurt him because Juggernaut is immune to physical damage. But, in the scenario that I've described, I would say that an out of bounds is considered a victory for for Superman, right? Or for either character, right? And in that regard, Superman can just pick up Juggernaut and throw him into space. If it's like a death battle where, one has to come out as a winner, I guess you could probably just throw him into the sun. Maybe that would count as physical damage. So then I guess in that case it'd be a tie. But, not every fight needs to be to the death. So, Superman should win. And it would be high diff because he just can't injure Juggernaut. And Juggernaut's attacks are probably strong enough to also hurt Superman. Especially if Juggernaut's running around Metropolis, it is going to cause like a lot of havoc and a lot of problems for Superman. But at that point, he'd just chuck him. Kaguya controls dimensions and stuff, but still, like, doesn't scale quite as high as she would need to. King the Conqueror, I don't really know about this guy. I always think, like, why can't he go back in time and do something? And he never does. He's pretty smart, but he like the Marvel universe, he shouldn't have knowledge of Superman's weaknesses. So, you'd probably put him around like a high diff lose. Maybe even a mid diff lose on the high end. Ultimate Cars, again, he could just get thrown into space. Even though he has like high durability and stuff, his scaling doesn't get high enough to hurt Superman. And after Superman realizes, wow, I can't really like hurt this guy enough that he stays down, so I'm just gonna chuck him or restrain him. But I think he might be hard to restrain because of his transformations. Kenpachi will go around Ichigo's level. Oh, is this Null? Yeah, so Null is like creation level. Not creation level, sorry. But like Null is like a cosmic being for sure. I think generally he's probably beating Superman. Kratos, huge debate on this one. It really depends. If you want to like wink God of War as hard as you can and say that he like transcends fiction or whatever, then be my guest. But in terms of like consistency and feats, I don't think that he's really standing a chance against Superman, like at all. Unless you want to use like the PlayStation stars as like a basis for feats, in which case, like, I've heard lines of scaling that get that to outer Versal, but like generally, I guess he's destroying like all of the universe, or like Yggdrasil or whatever in God of War. But, we don't have cosmology scaling that I think quite gets God of War's verse to be like DC level. I think that anybody who says Kratos is above Superman scaling is either, I shouldn't say dishonest. I think that like, you can like be a very well-intentioned scaler and think that Kratos is above Superman. But I do think that like a little more consistently, we would be putting him a little lower. But that's just a personal opinion. Kirby should be almost no diffing Superman, but we'll probably put him at the high end of mid diff. No. I think low diff is probably fair, especially if we have these guys here. Kirby probably even beats GE Doom. Let's see. Kyle Rayner Green Lanterns, like about the same level as Hal Jordan. They're not really even separate characters to include here. I think they have relatively similar scaling. Might be a fun video to do at some point though. Living Tribunal should no diff, or I mean mid diff. Low diff. Like low end of low diff. just because he's not quite on these guys' level. But Lobo, we've seen this fight before. He loses high diff. Loki, on one of my other videos, somebody said that, I shouldn't put God of Stories Loki that low. I wasn't under the impression, I don't know if this picture is God of Stories Loki. I didn't assume that it was. So when I scale this, I'm just saying like base Loki. And even though he does have magic-based powers, he just doesn't really have the scaling, in my opinion. Does have like a lot of hacks. Would give Superman a pretty good run for his money, though. Luffy gets no diffed. Magneto, is that Magneto? It's hard to say from this. Yeah, that's Magneto. So Magneto, no diffed. I'd say mid diff. Magneto's got some pretty impressive powers, but like metal isn't going to be hurting Superman. If he was a Daxamite, on the other hand, Magneto would have a really good chance with the lead, but he is not. So Martian Manhunter, we've seen this fight before. Martian Manhunter is just overrated, overglazed. His main claim to fame is going to be his like intangibility, which he never even uses properly. So who cares? Mephisto should be around like Dormammu level, and then in terms of like the magic, it's like a pretty big advantage for him. Meruem gets clapped. Mike Guy unfortunately gets clapped. His attacks probably won't be able to really hurt Superman. He's on a timer as soon as he starts. So Mongol, we already have seen high diffed. Naruto drops around Mike Guy. Obito, similar reasoning. This is Odin Force Thor very specifically. And Odin Force Thor should have like no difficulty. His powers are magic based and he's like out of risk, so like that's more than enough to stop Superman. Omni-Man is solo. At this point I'm just gonna drop him wherever. Punisher gets no diffed. Red Hulk gets mid diffed. Professor Zoom around Barry's level. Rimuru has a good chance of beating him. I'll put him around Anos' level, I think, maybe a little higher. Saber, again, these guys have like weird 7th dimensional scaling from the games. I don't really look into it because I don't care that much. But it might be like another Kratos video game glaze situation going on. But okay, so Sailor Moon, we're gonna be putting mid diff. Saitama, I think it depends on how you want to interpret this, but in terms of like what we've seen from him so far, he can't beat Superman. But when push comes to shove, maybe he'd be able to adapt enough where he would be winning like he did against Garo. But for now, we'll just keep him high diff. We'll have to wait and see for more feats from him. Sakura gets no diffed. Scarlet King no diffs. Scarlet Witch House of M no diffs. Void Sentry I think wins like mid diff. Very like conceptual powers, ridiculously strong. Now for regular Sentry, again, this is a video that would take years to not years. Sorry, what an exaggeration. Like I think a few dozen minutes to make. Generally, the way I feel about it though is Superman would win if it was a death battle. Sentry wins just because he's so unreasonably impossible to kill. But his power set is very impressive and his scaling is also like pretty impressive, but he's not quite on Superman levels of AP and speed, although he does have very impressive feats in general. He's one of the up and comers in Marvel too. And like his void form is like crazy strong as well. But I think generally I'd put him just a smidge below Superman without his void form. And if knockout is an acceptable outcome. Just because Sentry's durability is durability and like resistance to death, I guess, like his regeneration and hacks is ridiculous. I really have a hard time thinking of characters that are on his level. Like I guess like maybe Deadpool, but at the same time, like Sentry was able to resist getting erased from time, which is like a weird level of like conceptual resistance too. So it's hard to say. Sephiroth, I think these guys he also generally scales like above Superman. I don't know enough about Kingdom Hearts scaling. Sorry, Final Fantasy scaling. Excuse me. Shazam loses high diff. Shinra Bancho is creation level, and I think generally, even if it's like a smaller verse, creation level should be beating like a non-creation level character. Silver Surfer, now this one's kind of hard. He has like a small sliver of the power of Cosmic. It's not magic based though, so I would probably give it to Superman on a high diff. Spawn should be on creation level as well, so we put him on a mid diff. Spectre is overglazed, but unfortunately he wins. Spider-Man gets clapped. Steel gets lesser clapped, but still clapped. Sukuna gets ruined. Sun Wukong ruins. Superboy Prime destroys. Superman 1 million, even though he doesn't have the feats, is narratively above Superman, up for obvious reasons. Swamp Thing has the power of basically creation as well. Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet should be very easily winning. Thanos without the Infinity Gauntlet is getting his face rocked. Speaking of rocks, Thing gets noted or mid diffed. Thor, again, it's another battle that has like a lot of debatability, but generally I'm going to be putting him at a high diff loss. That's not fair. Sorry, I'd probably put him at a high diff win. And for him, the edge really does come from just being magic based and Superman not. Superman does show that he's able to fight against magical beings. He's not like he's dying to a magical attack that's killing a normal person, right? He has durability that still applies to magic despite what people say. But at the same time, Thor and Superman, I think, are at least relative in terms of strength. Especially like in more recent times, I think like Thor and Hulk have been getting a lot of upscales for their feats, while Superman has been kind of like relatively stagnant in that regard. So, maybe in the future this will change, but for now I'm putting Thor higher. Toba Hulk destroys. Trigon is like Mephisto and Dormammu. Ultra Ego Vegeta would be around like Goku's level. Hey, should put his head. Whitebeard is fodder. Wolverine gets wrecked. Wonder View it just has the hacks. I don't think Superman can really ever do anything to stop him. Wonder Woman is a better fighter, but just lower feats overall. Yamato, it just doesn't have like the strength. Superman has crazy heat resistance. He's able to fly into the sun, so like a little bit of fire isn't gonna do anything. Yamcha gets mid diffed. Yami is technically able to kill Superman if he lands a Dark Dimension slash on him, but he unfortunately just gets speed blitzed. But I guess he has more of a chance than any of these guys. So Yujiro Hanma gets blitzed. Yuha, I need to look at Yuha scaling to get a better idea of exactly how the Almighty would interact with Superman. So for now, I'm just going to leave him at a tie. Zeno, I guess by some logic, I did say Zeno's like a creation level character. So I guess you could probably put him at a win as well. It feels weird, but Zeus from Record of Ragnarok, the scaling for this is really like strange. Like he was there for the Big Bang, but at the same time, we don't really see him put out any output feats that would make us think he's anything higher than like mountain level. And then his speed is technically like faster than light. It's even like said to be faster than time, but his main claim to fame is his speed, and Superman is also pretty much immeasurable speed. So there's really no putting Zeus up there. Zoro gets clapped. All Might gets bodied, and Blue Marvel, I think, is generally going to be around Sentry level, a little lower. He can hold his own against the Sentry, but he does lose in like a drawn-out fight. So that is our list. Let me know what you guys think. Again, a lot of this is off the cuff. I don't like research this one ahead of time. This is like what I know from the top of my head from these lists of characters, and I did put together a list of characters, so these are mostly characters that I know pretty well. But let me know what you think, and let me know if these styles of videos are stuff that you guys enjoy. I'm trying to really like figure out my niche, so any feedback is appreciated. All right, thank you.